Hey there, everyone. I'm going to be tying a Wunderbar, a fly I came up with some time ago. It's designed as a Euro nymph with a broad profile meant to be fished in broken water. The idea behind it is to create a bulky profile without actually having bulk, so it sinks faster and more efficiently in the water. Now, I'm going to be tying it on a number 12 today. This is a Hanek 400. I typically tie it a bit smaller, on a 14 or even a 16. Jig and regular hooks as well, depending on my mood and what I've got available. I've currently got a tungsten 3.5 millimeter disco bead in copper on the front. Excuse me. And I'll be using UTC 70. This is a gray brown, I think they call it. It's kind of olive-ish in terms of color. And I'm going to be using hare's mask for the body. The ginger bits in the corner. For the hackle in the front, I'm going to be using a simple hen furnace hackle. I think this one's from Cook's Hill in the UK. And for the rib, sulky. It's a machine embroidery thread. It's actually just a mylar, a very narrow, strong mylar. I picked it up years ago. Get 250 yards, 225 meters for, I don't know what it was. Not expensive in any event. But I haven't gone through it because it's kind of hard to go through that amount of material. And for the thorax, I'm using Arizona Semi-Seal. Now, this is an earlier version. It's since been bought out by Montana Fly Company. There you go. They changed the formulation a little bit. The new stuff is a bit softer and not quite as spiky, which is why I like the older version, which has a bit more spike to it. But the new version works just as well. I've experimented with both and found it to be very good. The important thing with tying these flies is the texture of the dubbing. You want it spiky and not dense. Okay, so that's the key, and I'll explain as I go when I put it together. All right. Now, prep your materials in advance. Chop up the hare's mask. Pull out some of the softer underfur. So you mostly concentrating on having the spikes. You need the underfur in there to bind it to the thread, but aside from that, you want to try to keep that minimal. You'll see when I put it on that looks like I use too much, but then I go through and pick out the underfur and try to create that spiky body on it when I'm done. So I've got the thread mounted in the hook mounted in the vise, and now I'm going to put the thread on. I'm starting back about, I don't know, a millimeter or two, just to give a little bit of extra room. And I make 10 wraps with the thread, cut it off, and then I make another 10 or so. Of course, I want to end it just before the bend starts. Okay. Now, I should have mentioned earlier, I'm using Coq de Lion as a tail fiber material. This is a whiting Coq de Lion, silver badger. It's not real Coq de Lion. It's something I bought many years ago, and I've been slowly working my way through it. Mostly as tailing material, but sometimes for dry flies, just depending on the size, or even buggers, if the case may be. I take out about 6 to 8 fibers, measure them up against the body. You know, doesn't have to be too exact, but You don't want the tail to be too long, and you don't want it to be too short. I make a couple of wraps just to test the length. As we can see, it's a tad long, so we can pull back on the butt ends. There we go. And then I bind the butt ends down and trim away the excess. Having these beads slide around is always annoying, but there you go. And just put that down there. Now I'll take my sulky thread, cut a little portion off already, and I'm going to bind it to the far side of the hook. This helps prevent it from interfering with the tail when you wind it on. I got this from a clever YouTuber, Oleo Flies. I think his name is Vlad. And yeah, bind it down to the side. Stick that into your material keeper. In my case, I'm using tape. I like to keep it like this just so that the vice bits and pieces are out of the way. But what I'm going to do is open up the UTC thread. I used to use Benici when I first started making these, which is very strong. It's a corded thread, but it builds bulk rather quickly. And I get around here and I ideally split the thread. Yeah, it should be 50-50, but you know, you do what you gotta do. Now I've already chopped up my hare's mask here, and I put it in. As I said, it looks like a lot, right? Give it a little spin clockwise to tighten up the thread, and spin the dubbing for the body. Now, as I said, material is the material used for the body doesn't have to be hare's mask. It can be squirrel or any other spiky fur that doesn't use too much, doesn't have too much underfur in it. The whole idea is to make it look spiky. And as far as colors go, I mean, you don't have to follow the colors that I've used. One fellow on YouTube tried this fly out and used ginger antron. I'm not even sure he changed the thorax color, but and he used partridge for the wing, for the hackle rather, and took it out on his first try. Ended up catching 42 fish with it. So, I mean, it's always nice when you get validation from somebody else that shows that it works. Okay, now I'm going to bring the ribbing through. Ideally, you sort of scissor it through the spiky hare's mask, so you don't bind down too many of the fibers. Yes, I know it's not the best binding job, but anyways, it's a fish and fly. Don't need to worry about being perfect. I could back it off and what have you, so I bring the thread back a bit. We want some room at the eye for the thorax, so it's pretty straightforward. All right. Once again, we're trying to minimize the amount of bulk, physical bulk, while still giving the appearance and profile of bulk. Going with the scissors and maybe trim it down a little bit so you get a nice spiky body, and you eliminate any rogue hairs that are a little too long. Again, we go back to, I'll do it this way again. opening up the thread, so we got to flatten it out. I find this is the most tedious part of this whole process. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but generally I can, after practicing, I can get these flies done in about 9 minutes, and I'm not the fastest tyer in the world. I'm running the bodkin needle down the thread to see how flat it is, and also to open it up so it's theoretically easier to get the to separate the thread. All right, stick my meaty paws in there. I take my prepared semi-seal for the thorax material. Pinch it in. Now I fish a lot of soft hackles, and I tend to tie my flies when I'm doing something like this, such that it's like a feather. And you sort of push it back, arc it back as you wrap it forward. You'll see in a minute. Okay, oh, looks nice and tight. Once again, go back in, pull out anything that's a little bit too long, and to eliminate some of the bulk if there's one spot that's a little heavy. Keep in mind the thorax is there to support the hackle in front and add a little color to the mix. Now I'm using golden peacock here. Once again, it really depends on bugs in your area and what you have the most confidence in. Okay, so I've wrapped it forward, and as I said, try to stroke it back a little bit. Once again, get in there with the old scissors and trim out any of the long stuff. It's far too long. Now, the thorax supports the hackle feather in front, so that it doesn't collapse when you fish it, right? Once again, we're looking for that bulk without bulk, thick profile without bulk. Yeah, and I prepared the hackle feather in advance. I don't know if you can see it there, but the hackles are about the length of the body, just as a rough guide. You're dealing with natural feathers, so and they're not genetic, so it tend to be a bit more random in terms of their length. 2 wraps there, and another wrap to secure it. I'm not too worried about the butt section. It gets hidden by the hackle as it's wrapped forward. Just use simple hackle pliers, and if I do it right, gotta do it right-handed. I normally use electric contact pieces, connectors, as a hackle plier. But for fine feathers like this, I find that this clumsy old thing works best. Now I'm wrapping the hackle about 3 turns, 3.5 turns, 2.5 turns, depending on how thick the hackle is, in front of the thread, so that when I wrap the thread forward, it traps the stem of the hackle, rachia, and allows it to, and just gives a little extra strength. Keeping in mind that we're going to be nothing ever works as it's supposed to when you're doing a video. There we go. All right, got her out of there anyways. That's the main thing. an extra turn in there to support the and protect the hackle. I push it back a little bit. Got a few errant bits and pieces there. And now this little trick I learned from Norman Actima, sorry, from the USA, Flyfish USA team. And a nymph that he does is called ICU Mayfly, and it's by Umpqua. It's a very neat pattern. I definitely always have a couple in my box. But anyways, he puts the hotspot collar on after the main body thread, and he does that because he tends to use a heavier collar material. And when I was using heavier thread, I did the same, but using the fluorescent the fluorescent UTC thread for the collar. This is, I should have mentioned it when I was doing the introduction, but this is this is fluorescent fire orange. Now, I'll do one extra one just because I'm being careful here. What I'm doing is trapping the original tying thread with the collar material. All right, now we go back in, and ideally cut away the main tying thread and the tag end of the fluorescent fire orange. Now we're going to finish it off. Just take a look around, make sure you haven't built up too much excess there. And now we're just going to whip finish. I often add super glue directly to the thread for the collar before I wrap it, but I'm going to go in afterwards and coat it with super glue or resin, whatever your fancy is. I'm just doing 4 wraps, and it runs a little up onto the bead. Give it a little snug tighten, and then I go and I use my thumbnail just to tidy it up around the front. Seems to make a difference. It makes the fly look a little bit better at the end of the day. Now, once again, we go in and slice off the excess. All right, that's basically it. I mean, you can go in and tidy it up if you want, maybe pull a few hairs out with your bodkin needle. So once again, the whole idea is that it looks bulky without actually being bulky, so it sinks fairly quickly. And it's an added bonus when you finish your presentation on your drift. You let it swing below you and lift it like a Lysinger lift, and it acts like a wet fly and will often take trout even over water that you fished previously. I've really had a lot of success with this one. I fish some difficult waters, and I've been very fortunate to come up with this and catch quite a few fish. Once again, it's designed to fish in broken water. So start of the head of the pool, got riffles coming into the main pool or pocket or whatever. Chuck this upstream, keep a tight line on it, bring it through, track it, let it drop into the pool or pocket, and then, as I say, let it swing out and slowly lift it at the end if you don't get a hit on the initial on the initial presentation with the Euro style. Okay. Got any questions? Try to contact me. I'm available online. Yeah, that's basically it. The Wunderbar. Oh, just on a side note, Wunderbar means, excellent or great in German, I think. But it's also the name of a chocolate bar from when I was a kid. That's why I came up with the name. Anyways, that's it. And I'll just spin around so you can see from all sides. Yeah. Have a nice day. Take care. Bye.